Welcome back to Advance Wars 2. Last time we began to make a foothold in Yellow Comet. Now we solidify our territory with this mission, and I don't know why, what about this exactly, but I really love this mission. I don't know why, this has always been one of my favorites in the game. And time for some villain gloating. And this line right here. Yes. Pretty much, if you had no indication before that Ada was a complete and total dick, then, yeah, there's that line. So, yes, we'll be up against Ada this time. We've only fought him once so far, but Ada is pretty much the main antagonist of Yellow Comet, and yeah, he is irritating to fight against, to say the least. But, yep, we are going in with Sensei this time. And yeah, Sensei is very, very, very interesting for several reasons. Not just his extremely unique playstyle, but there's a few interesting things about his character too that bring to mind the history of the Wars series. So, I'll be talking about that a little bit, but first, yes, this is a Fog of War mission. And prepare for Ada to get sick burned, big time. Yeah, Sensei's completely nonchalant about this. Yes, this is in fact true. In fact, it actually fits into Sensei's playstyle, which you'll be seeing later. Yeah, this line coming up. With that, you know Sensei is more than he seems. And this line coming up is actually a little misleading. But firstly, a warning. Warning! Sensei's theme is extremely catchy. Listening to it will most likely get it stuck in your head for the rest of your entire life. You have been warned. Seriously, I love Sensei's theme. Now, if you look at his stats here, you'll notice that he only has firepower bonuses on a few units, and almost all of his have weakened firepower. So you might be thinking, okay, that's really strange. He's only got 3 units that are strong, and all the rest are weak? How can this guy possibly be any good? Well, that's where Sensei is gonna prove you wrong. You see, Sensei is actually one of the most awesome characters in this game, if you can pull him off right. He has a very, very bizarre and unique playstyle. Now, before I was talking about Colin being the lethal joke character of this game, Sensei, I think, fits the bill even more. And you'll see why in a bit. Basically, Sensei has powerful infantry. In fact, his infantry are even stronger than Sammy's, believe it or not, though they don't get increased capturing ability. He also, being a helicopter and paratrooper specialist, gets increased movement range on all of his transports, which really helps on a map like this. You see, this map is the thing is, they picked an absolutely perfect map to show off Sensei's playstyle and how he works, and I really applaud them for doing it. Again, like, this map is really perfect for Sensei, because yes, the increased movement range on transports, the rough terrain, meaning that mechs are kind of useful, the thin pathways, and all the water for helicopters to cross, the whole map really benefits him quite a lot. But anyway, I'm heading out to capture that central airport as soon as I possibly can. That airport there is very important for one main reason. As you could probably tell by the other thing on Sensei's unit list that's one of his strongest. Sensei has the strongest battlecopters in the entire game. In fact, his battlecopters get possibly one of the biggest regular boosts outside of a CO power in the whole game. I believe they have something along the lines of plus 50% offense. It's really, really high, basically. So, despite the fact that he really only specializes in pretty much one type of unit, that type of unit just happens to be one of the cheapest, and well, not so much cheapest, but most cost-effective for what it needs to do, and most versatile units in the entire game. Battlecopters, well, they can attack a lot of things. They can attack tanks, they can attack infantry, they can attack other copters. Pretty much the only things they can't hit are planes. And, well, with that, the thing is, you might have noticed that Sensei's planes, in other words, fighters and bombers, are still average. They're some of his few units that actually are average, and as a result, they're still some of his better units. So, Sensei is one of the 2 air specialists in this game. The other being, well, we'll get to the other in quite a long time, actually, but anyway. Now, something else about Sensei. You might want to capture as many cities as you possibly can with him. Just saying, it might do you good in the future if you do that. Yep, try and secure as many cities as possible. Why? Well, you'll see. So anyway, our basic strategy with Sensei here is I'm bringing out a lot of transport copters and a lot of infantry. Basically because those are some of his strongest units. Sensei's vehicle unit, I have no idea why I made an artillery there. I guess it's because, because I knew that was coming. Yep, Ada's going to send his units down this small peninsula here. Basically what you want to do is you want to block it off, sort of, and then you want to hit them with copters from the sides while you're keeping them busy on land. And speaking of copters, I've got enough money for a battle copter, so I'm pretty sure I'll go ahead and get one. Because believe me, you want Sensei's copters. Not only that, but this is a fog of war mission, and copters tend to have pretty good range. I may need to use this helicopter as a blockade. But if I can get that mech to the tank, that should be pretty good. I mean, Sensei's mechs are something to be feared. They're even stronger than Sammy's, and that's really saying something. But anyway, also ferrying troops up here. Again, making use of Sensei's increased range for transports, and that doesn't just apply to air transports, it actually applies to all transports, so his APCs and landers also get increased movement, which can be quite helpful. Not that we'll be actually using landers on this map, but, I mean, Sensei is pretty bad in naval combat, but, considering that Navy is probably one of the least used of the 3 unit types, that's not that bad of a downside. Of course, on maps that heavily favour Navy, usually those ones actually have airports on them, so Sensei tends to be quite good, and oh boy! Looks like they've already got a foothold in these cities, but, fortunately, we have Sensei's battlecopters. Time to show them what these things can really do. Believe me, Sensei's copters are insane. I keep saying this, but yeah. Sensei's copters, completely insane, basically, and I'm going to need to retreat that infantry if I want to take a shot at the tank with my mech, but I think it's going to be worth it, because, yeah, Sensei's mechs are actually pretty good here. Very good, actually. And you might end up seeing a lot of Sensei's mechs, for reasons that will become apparent later in this mission when my power meter starts charging up. Yeah, so you can see there, Sensei's infantry are very, very good. It's justified by him being a paratrooper expert, so yeah, his forte is, once again, foot soldiers and copters. Now, think about Sensei, though, in terms of his main weaknesses. Due to the fact that he specializes in infantry and copters, you might have realized that just about all of his specialty units are vulnerable to something that just showed up there. Anti-airs. Sensei does not like anti-airs. Anti-airs are pretty much massively effective against everything. All of his best units take horrible, horrible damage from anti-airs. And as a result, yeah, kind of a problem there. And like that, you got a situation similar to Grits, what I like to call necessary evil. Oh, damn it. Thought that wouldn't happen. Okay, fine. Anyway, my ridiculously good infantry are going to help here. Seriously, love Sensei's infantry. They just completely wreck other armies' infantry. Even Sammy will get a run for her money from... Seriously, like, I keep having to mention this. I mean, poor Sammy, she really gets the short end of the stick in campaign mode because not a lot of missions really suit her, and in the few missions where she does appear, well, you'll see later. Later on in Yellow Comet, as a matter of fact. Okay, I kind of don't want to kill some of those infantry because otherwise I run the risk of getting anti-aired. And I really don't like that. As good as Sensei's copters are, they still get pretty much one-shot by anti-air units. Which is why, back to what I was saying, necessary evil, as I like to call it. Even though they may be weak I mean, they're at minus 10% firepower, I believe, which is not that bad, all things considered, but even though they might be weak, with Sensei, you really need to make some tanks to back up his copters, because, yeah, pretty much all of his units are horribly weak to anti-airs. Now, you can try and take out anti-airs with mechs, it's just that mechs have very low movement and very weak defenses, so if the anti-airs get the drop on you, you're pretty much gone. And even if you do hit one of them, you'll probably take quite a lot of damage in retaliation. So, maybe not the best strategy. I, for one, like to at least make some tanks with Sensei, just to kind of cover some of his weaknesses. And Ada has foolishly moved one of his tanks in front of my... No, moved his anti-air in front of my tank. So that's, yeah, pretty dumb. Unfortunately, it'll be a little while before I can take that city. And again, when you're playing against Ada, one thing that you got to make sure of is always keep an eye on his power gauge. Because, yeah, I may have mentioned it before, but yes, Ada is the main commander that you'll be fighting in Yellow Comet. And Ada, well, playing against him can be best summed up in one word: annoying. Ada is pretty much the premier annoyer character of this game, if only because of something, and hey, I think I just made use of the surplus HP funds thing. Speaking of which, that also applies to if you use your, I believe you can hear this piece of info from Hachi's shop if you go there often enough. Basically, if you use your null power when you already have some stars into your super meter, the excess super meter that was not used also gets converted into funds. So yeah, that's kind of a nice benefit. Again, Ada will actually use... The thing is, he actually knows how that Sensei seems to hate anti-air units and such. He will tend to spam them on this map. He will also have missiles later on. Guarding his headquarters, there will be lots of missiles, so you'll need to worry about those, but that's... we're not quite ready to take on that yet. Basically, we're going to need a really big force of copters before we try and take on the headquarters. Because that's really the main thing here. Get a foothold in the central territory here, kind of spam infantry a little bit, and... oh, damn it. Like I said, Ada, extremely annoying. He already has his null power. And, yup, okay. Ada's null power and superpower, again, are just sheer irritation factor, because basically Ada's main gimmick is that he has average firepower on all his units, and they always remain average. He never gets any firepower boosts. However, what he lacks in brute strength, he more than makes up for in, again, sheer annoyance factor. Ada's main gimmick is that his power gauge charges up freakishly quickly, and I mean really freakishly quickly. Ada has not only the smallest power meter in the game, but his special abilities mean that it actually charges up faster than usual, which is kind of annoying because, well, basically, you so much as scratch one of Ada's more expensive units, he'll pretty much get his null power instantly. You do a lot of damage to him, and bang, immediate superpower. I have seen Ada get his superpowers in one turn. It's pretty ridiculous. Okay, I'm going over here because I'm worried about ambushes, especially given those woods there. But, anyway, like I was saying, and Ada's powers are... they don't seem like it at first glance, but they are very, very annoying and very kind of good, actually. Ada's null power is simply all units get +1 movement. Superpower, all units get +2 movement. That doesn't sound that bad. Oh boy, are you wrong. The thing about his powers is that they benefit everything, and as such, Ada is extremely unpredictable. They charge up so quickly also means that you always need to be on your toes when you're fighting him. And whenever you have a plan that relies on one of your units being safely out of range of the enemy, you want to double check that he doesn't have his power, because always make sure that you keep at least one space away from Ada's maximum movement range, or two if you really think he's going to go for the super, because... yeah, believe me, he will use that when you least expect it, and it is very, very annoying. Again, the fact that it benefits everything that makes Ada extremely versatile and unpredictable to face. So, yeah, he's quite an annoying opponent for the most part, and we'll be seeing a lot of him in Yellow Comet, which is kind of a bad thing. Okay, I'm still on the normal. I might want to go for the super here, because trust me, Sensei's copter's backed up by his superpower. Yeah, and I may want to get myself a few more cities before I go for the power. The reason being, well, you'll see in a moment. Well, you'll see eventually once I actually get it. And, okay, let's see what's there. Okay, good, no anti-airs. I'm a little paranoid that he'll send an anti-air out at me. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the copter as a blockade there. Okay, he produced a mech out of that, not an anti-air, that's good. And yes, annoyingly, even if they're next to land tiles, copters cannot unload units at all if they're overseas, as the tutorial said at one point. So that gets very annoying. Also, speaking of annoying, enemy ambushes in woods. This is not one of those missions where you really need to hide your units in woods. Again, like, air units can't hide at all, and Sensei uses mostly air units, so it's not really that much of a big deal. But again, you will notice Ada does have a lot of indirect units lurking in the woods near his base, so you will have to watch out for that. I know he definitely has missiles around his headquarters, so always be careful. Do not rush your copters in until you scout ahead and make sure you know where those missiles are, because if there's anything that's annoying, it's surprise missiles. Anyway, I've already got half a star into my super meter, which makes me a little bit paranoid, because for every half a star I get into my meter, Ada most likely gets a full star into his. Exactly, he got a full star, yeah. But the other thing that's kind of interesting, well, not so much interesting, but that kind of is relevant for Ada is, and Hachi will tell this to you in the shop, he actually has a lot of kind of nice hints as well. I might show those one day if I get the chance. He often talks about particular characters and how they work and what strategies to best use with them, but at one point he talks about Ada, and he mentions that despite the fact that his power meter charges up ridiculously quickly, the more you use your powers, the longer they take to charge up the next time. And that doesn't just go for Ada, that goes for everyone, but it actually kind of hits Ada the hardest out of everyone, because the main thing he has going for him is the fact that he charges up quickly. So once he loses that, he kind of starts to suffer a little. Of course, by the time he's got to the point where he's starting to lose it, he most likely has used his power about 5 times, so yeah. If I haven't made it clear, Ada, very, very annoying to face. Again, he doesn't have the, well, I mean, Flak's kind of an idiot, and Flak's pretty easy to face most of the time, except in certain circumstances. Liberation hard campaign. Probably the one time where Flak is actually a threat. Boy, that one is so much harder than I expected it to be, but we'll probably won't get to that. But anyway, for those of you playing hard campaign, just believe me. The final mission on Orange Star hard campaign has the same difficulty level as the final mission period normal campaign. There is a very, very good reason for this. But anyway. Okay, am I not heeding my advice? Because I'm pretty sure he does have missiles here somewhere, and I have a feeling that one of my copters is going to find out the hard way. And by hard way, I mean the missile in the face way. So, it looks like we're slowly pushing in on Ada's headquarters. I'm not sure if he has any units hidden in those woods back. Oh, see, he's almost got his normal power again. Yep, hidden rockets, thought so. The AI just loves pulling that trick on fog maps, doesn't it? I think I know where those are, too. Actually, I know, there's only one place they could be. So, pretty much. But, yeah, Ada will like to hide his units, and oh crap, that's bad. Bad, 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 bad. Very bad. My copters are going to have to take those out next turn. He's already guarding the headquarters, and yes. You see, the AI is kind of smart enough to play around your commander's specialties. In this case, Ada does like to deploy a lot of anti-air units because of the copters, so gotta watch out for that. I'm getting into my power meter, almost at the super, oh, damn it, not quite. But, yeah, let's see how much the recon does here. Even though Sensei's recons are a little weak, this should do quite a... Yep, that did quite a lot. And only 1 HP loss in return. I'd say that's fair. Very, very worried about that anti-air. I had this feeling that I might need to sacrifice one of my copters. But, it looks like I've been doing relatively fine when it comes to technique rating so far. And yes, Sensei's copters versus tanks. I mean, under the effect of some of his powers, I mean, even You know, to be honest, I have no idea why I made that artillery, but still. Under the effect of some of his powers, they can even take on Neos reasonably well. Like, you'll see when I use the superpower. Seriously. Sensei's copters are absolutely insane under the effects of his superpower. And there's that pesky rocket I saw before. Yeah, so basically, yeah, Sensei's copters, awesome. They completely shred infantry, very good against tanks. You just want to keep them away from anti-airs. And once again, I'm kind of running out of things to say, so I guess I should try and reiterate. General strategy for this mission, get the middle airport as soon as you possibly can. That is the main thing. Other than that, try and secure yourself as many cities as possible. Try and hold the enemy off at land on the small strip of land on the side there, and I mean the left-hand side, and then get your copters to swing around the flank and hit them in the sides while they're busy. That always works kind of well. Push up the top part of the map with copters, just watch out for anti-air units. Don't be afraid if you lose a couple of them to anti-air fire, you probably will, but the technique ranking is generally kind of fine. Copters are generally cheap enough to spam as well, which is another thing that makes Sensei really useful. Probably don't need to go for that one. And also, you probably won't need to capture any of Ada's bases here. This is also, yeah, something I should point out, a relatively small map that, well, neither of you really have a chance to get hold of any bases that are outside your main base. Except for, of course, okay, I can't resupply that transport copter in, airport. Oh yeah, another thing, of course, as you should, of course, be wary about with any air specialist like Sensei, watch your fuel, because you might need a couple of APCs just to resupply your air units, because yes, if air units run out of fuel, they die, plain and simple. Speaking of air units dying, that one just did. That one was pretty much a necessity. I really didn't want that to have to happen. At least that base is currently occupied by the anti-air, so... Oh, and wow! Did Ada seriously just block off all of his own bases on a turn I have my super? Really? Okay, now this is imperative. Before you use Sensei's super, make sure all of your cities that you control are clear of units. Again, make sure all of your cities are clear. You will see why in a moment. I'm kind of glad that I got my power now, because watch this. This is also one of the longest names of a power in the game. Airborne Assault! Okay, now watch what happens here. This is actually kind of cool. Yep, from out of all of the cities you control, 9 HP mechs spawn out of nowhere, and they can move and attack on the turn they appear. Not only that, but the firepower for helicopters goes up to ridiculous extents. I reckon they're at about 180% now. In fact, they're at so much that they still suck against anti-airs. Oh, damn it. But I could maybe swarm one of them. Anyway, a sudden influx of 9 HP mechs actually has a lot more uses than you'd probably think. And just as Sensei was saying earlier on, there is actually kind of a thing with that thing he was pointing out about joining units and funds. If you join together 2 9 HP mechs, you can actually make quite a lot of quick cash easily. This makes Sensei's powers, in a way, kind of similar to Colin's, in they give you a bit of a rush of funds when you need them. And fear the mighty power of Sensei's helicopters under the effects of airborne assault, seriously. Ridiculously powerful. Oh, by the way, Sensei's normal power only creates 9 HP infantry out of all his cities. In some cases, that can actually be more useful considering that infantry have higher movement. Of course, the low movement of mechs isn't much of a problem if you've got cities close to the enemy base and suddenly a whole bunch of mechs are just spawning everywhere. Just... Sensei has probably one of the most more unique powers in the game, and for that is one of the reasons why I find him incredibly fun to play as, because there's a lot of really unique, well, basically, yeah, his whole playstyle is just downright unique, really it is, and it's pretty awesome that way. Again, like I said, sudden influx of 9 HP mechs has a lot more uses than you probably think, and yeah, it also does wonders for your technique score as well, because you suddenly have a whole bunch of free troops, which is nice for that technique score. So, Sensei is really good at that too. So, yeah, Sensei is very much the game's lethal joke character. Because, yeah, you might at first think that, hey, I love the sheer irony of an APC about to run out of fuel. They can't resupply themselves for some reason. Yet, APCs can resupply other AVs just fine. Just one of the logical things you have to put up with in this series, I guess. Anyway, now time to move all of these. And yeah, looks like we've well and truly pretty much won this, except yes, this is the thing. Generally speaking, whenever you get your superpower, usually Ada will get his right afterwards. It's, yeah, Sidewinder, +2 movement on all units. Probably not, whoa, I did not see that. Where did that mech come from? Okay, that copter's probably dead. Sorry. Oh yeah, annoying wood ambushes, always hate them. Though we are probably going to win this turn, I will say, because almost certainly going to win this turn, actually. And as you can see, I've got a lot of copters here. Also, trust me, we will be seeing more of Sensei later on this campaign, and I'm glad. He is one of my favourite characters in this game. Just out of the sheer fact that everyone underestimates him because they think he's all like an old man, but he's actually extremely badass, like, really. He's probably the epitome of the TV trope retired badass, like, really. He is pretty amazing, and he quickly shows his enemies that he's not to be underestimated. And there's actually quite a bit more about Sensei's character that becomes apparent after we've won this in the victory conversation, and it's something that I've prepared something a little special to go with, so look forward to that once I've cleaned up these units. You know what? Okay, I might do this. If I take this thing out, my other copter should be able to finish off that anti-air. My one regret in this mission is not taking out that anti-air earlier, because, yeah. And yeah, we pretty much won this. I hope that infantry is the last thing Ada has. If he was hiding an artillery in those woods that I didn't check, that would be really, really annoying. I always hate it when that happens. But, okay, take us home, and this should be it. Is it? Is it it? Come on, tell me. And yes, that's it. And this bit is really interesting. Okay, I will just... There's a lot I can say about this part. Yeah, Sensei was kind of terrifying back in his day, apparently. And, yeah, he only really cares about getting some rest, but apparently everyone used to fear him. I love how nonchalant about the fact that he used to be, like the most infamous commander of the battlefields. It's like, I'm pretty sure we've never seen that image before. I'm not so sure, but it feels oddly jarring to have really realistic-looking soldiers there. But anyway, perfect S rank. This is not that hard of a mission if you know how to approach it, and for some reason this mission has always been one of my favourites in the game. It just always brings back nice memories for me, because it's one of the ones that stood out to me the most when I first played this game, back when I was like 12. I don't know why, I just did. But before we leave off, I have one thing I'd like to say. Now, I think I promised I'd talk about this earlier on in the Blue Moon Lab mission, where I was mentioning that I had a bit of a theory with regards to continuity between this game and earlier Advance Wars games. And that issue really comes up here, because most people who are familiar with the history of the Wars series probably know this already, but I'm just going to reiterate this just for those who don't know. That conversation at the end of this chapter, there might actually be a little more to this for people who, like I said, know the history of the series. Specifically, a game called Super Famicom Wars. Super Famicom obviously being the Japanese name of the Super NES. Yes, just like Fire Emblem, the Advance Wars series, another series by Intelligent Systems, has several games that were only released in Japan. Again, very similar to Fire Emblem. Now, unlike Fire Emblem though, most of these tend to go relatively unnoticed by the fandom, and I personally think, yes, Fire Emblem may have some very, very good games in its Japan-only library, Fire Emblem 4. Advance Wars, it's not that the games aren't good or anything, it's just that I think the series really hit its stride with the Game Boy Advance games. And a lot of the early ones, for example, did not have any story campaign, really. They just had a series of sort of challenge maps, but no real story to them. But it is interesting to have a look at how some of these games influence things that would show up in later games. And I think I've actually pointed out something about this before. Namely, this guy, known as Billy Gates. Yes, it's an obvious, joke. But anyway, this guy, I argue, is pretty much the predecessor to Colin, in that basically his abilities revolves around him getting extra money. Now, the interesting thing with this game is, while it did have commanding officers, they didn't really impact that much. Only a few of them actually had any specific abilities. Only 3 of them, to be exact. And all of the others, really all they impacted was how the AI plays. Some of them have dumber AI by default, some of them have more offense over defense AI, some of the opposite. But again, they were mostly designed as like different types of challenges to a single player. So really, they only impacted when playing against them, really. Except for these 3. The first one, this guy, did have the ability of getting extra funds. Now, again, I still have that theory that he's Colin and Sasha's father. I think that would sort of make sense. It does say that they're heirs to a vast fortune. Of course, it did say that Billy was apparently the son of a rich father as well, so I guess it sort of runs in the family, but I still kind of argue that. But the main thing that seems to serve as a possible link between that game and this one is a certain character by the name of Mr. Yamamoto. Now, his picture doesn't really probably look all that familiar to you, but once I start talking about his abilities, you might seem to see some kind of resemblance with a certain character, and it's pretty obvious who, given which mission that I've put this at the end of. This here, which I think was taken from, a translation patch, lists his memo here as the legendary general with an unrivaled elite army. Yes, Mr. Yamamoto was the quote-unquote deliberately broken character of Super Famicom Wars. Basically like there's a certain character we'll be seeing later on in this campaign who is pretty horribly broken in general with pretty much no drawbacks. And that was basically this guy. Mr. Yamamoto was basically designed as the ultimate challenge to any human player playing against him. You see, Super Famicom Wars actually used a unit experience system very similar to the one in Days of Ruin. And Mr. Yamamoto's gimmick was that all of his units already started at level 2, even if you turned off experience. Yeah, this equated to a 40% boost in firepower and defense, so basically, he was an even better Kanbei without any drawbacks whatsoever. Yep, this guy was horribly broken, and deliberately so. You might be asking, what does that have to do with this game? Well, you probably won't know unless you look at Sensei's Japanese name. Yes, in the Japanese version of Advance Wars 2, Sensei is in fact called Yamamoto. Yes, they share a name. Now, whether or not this is just a kind of what TV tropes would call a mythology gag, or whether it implies something. Given how Ada talked about how they used to be a legendary commander who everyone feared, and considering how broken this guy was, it seems quite possible that Sensei and Yamamoto are one in the same. I'll just say this one thing. One thing that kind of sort of destabilizes this theory a little bit is that Ada specifically mentions that the legendary commander did come from Yellow Comet. He says, this country, referring to Yellow Comet specifically. Mr. Yamamoto was actually an unaffiliated commander in Super Famicom Wars, so that kind of doesn't really hold that much water. Of course, back then, Yellow Comet, I don't think they had the Japanese motifs, because if you look closely at the bottom right corner of the screen, you'll see the Yellow Comet commander from that game, and the less said about him the better, let's just say. Yeah. So, then again though, The fact that this guy was the only character in Super Famicom Wars who had a very obviously Japanese name, the fact that Yellow Comet in this game is basically Japan, and the fact that he's got the exact same name as Sensei, and even then, the title Sensei is sometimes the equivalent of Mister in some contexts, so it's actually, yeah, almost makes sense in a way. The music currently playing now is in fact Mr. Yamamoto's theme from Super Famicom Wars. Now, I know this is really reaching, but there's one very small part of the music that kinda sounds like part of Sensei's theme. I know it's probably really grasping at straws, but hey, I'll take any chance I get, basically. Again, this is a theory that I probably support. I know that according to a certain conversation in the first Advance Wars, there is definite evidence that the earlier Famicom Wars games were canon and took place sometime in the distant past of these ones. Mostly because it's implied that Orange Star and Blue Moon have kind of had a bit of a rivalry for years, and one of the characters in the Super Famicom Wars is mentioned as being a bitter rival, this is a Blue Moon commander, of one of the Orange Star commanders, so that lends credence to that theory. Here's something interesting. The 3 unaffiliated commanders who all had special abilities, unlike the others who are pretty much all just Andes with just slight tweaks to their AI, all 3 of them actually influence characters from this game. We've had Billy Gates influencing Colin, Yamamoto possibly being Sensei. What about the 3rd? Well, the 3rd one is interesting. I'll probably be talking about her a bit later because I don't want to spoil the abilities of someone who we haven't seen yet in battle and we will not be seeing in battle for the whole of campaign mode. I'll just leave you with the picture of this character, and I think you can probably figure out who she influenced, but I'll go into more detail later. Figured it out yet? Anyway, that's enough yammering from me. Funny, now I sound like a rambling old man, kind of perfectly fitting for Sensei's first mission. But anyway, Sensei's first mission is over. Next time... I'm not looking forward to next time. It had to come eventually, didn't it? Oh boy. That one. The one I've been dreading. I really don't want to do this, but I have no choice. See you next time for Showstopper.